we were trying to play through it. We tried not to make excuses. One of the best players in the league shot 0 free throws. 0. And she had 5 fouls. 0 free throws. Got her shoulder pulled out and finished the game with her leg being taken out and probably has a fracture. And so if this is what our league wants, okay. But I want to call for a change of leadership.
All right, so the WNBA just made a decision that has everyone in the basketball world absolutely stunned. In what can only be described as a tone-deaf and shocking move, the league assigned the exact same officiating crew from the Minnesota Lynx and Phoenix Mercury disaster to the Indiana Fever versus Las Vegas Aces semifinals. Yeah, you heard that right. The same 3 referees whose calls led to a coach's suspension and a star player's injury were suddenly put in charge of Caitlin Clark's biggest playoff test yet. Fans aren't just confused, they're furious. And many are straight up calling this outright corruption. So, did the league purposely pick these refs to try and tilt the game? The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no, and what we uncover reveals a much deeper problem within the league itself. Before we dive into this mess, if you're as passionate about sports justice as I am, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us cover stories that major outlets are sometimes afraid to touch.
For the game. The officiating crew that we had tonight, for the leadership to deem those 3 people semifinals playoff worthy is malpractice. I can take an L with the best of them. I don't think we should have to play through more than what they did. We got players and gets cracked and there's no call, and all of them said it wasn't my call. I don't know. I didn't have that. I didn't see it that awful.
It all started with a single play that effectively ended a championship caliber season. In the final seconds of a tight Game 3 between the Minnesota Lynx and Phoenix Mercury, Lynx star Napheesa Collier drove to the basket. Phoenix's Alyssa Thomas reached in, and while she may have touched the ball first, her body clearly cut off Collier's path, leading to a brutal collision. Collier's leg got caught underneath her, and she went down with a gruesome ankle injury that forced her to hobble off the court. The referees, Barnett, Richardson, and Jenna Reneau, stood by and called nothing. It was a non-call that would have massive repercussions. We later learned the true severity of the injury. Collier had suffered a grade 2 tear of 3 ligaments in her ankle and a muscle in her shin, an injury with minimum 6-week recovery period that guaranteed she would not return for the rest of the playoffs. Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve completely lost it. She stormed the court, got in the face of the officials, and was immediately ejected. But she wasn't done. In her post-game press conference, she unleashed a fiery rant that would echo across the league. She called the decision to assign that officiating crew FG malpractice and demanded a change in leadership. The league's response was swift and severe. They hit Reeve with the largest fine in WNBA history for a coach in the playoffs, $15,000, and a 1-game suspension for the win-or-go-home Game 4. So, the top-seeded Lynx had to face elimination without their best player and their head coach. The Mercury won Game 4, and in the Lynx's dream season, in a devastating loss.
Who was it that asked about officiating before the game? Was that you, Kendra? And we talked about how dangerous it can be. You're hearing it from the other series. You're hearing other coaches. You're hearing Becky talk about when you let the physicality happen, people get hurt. There's fights. And this is the look that our league wants.
The punishment didn't quiet the controversy. It ignited a firestorm, turning a single no call into a full-blown league crisis. But this wasn't just about one bad call. What followed was an investigation into who these referees even are, and that's where the story gets even more concerning. Unlike the NBA, where you can look up an official's entire career history and statistics, the WNBA operates in a shroud of secrecy. There is no public database to evaluate officials. The biggest issue here isn't necessarily their individual experience, but the total lack of transparency and a system that seems set up to fail. The WNBA is cobbling together playoff crews from officials who work in other leagues with different standards, and they're doing it all behind a curtain. This makes it impossible for fans, and even for teams, to trust the process. The structural disadvantages are very real. Unlike the NBA, the WNBA has no off-site replay center. Referees on the floor must review plays themselves, a process that can slow the game and introduce bias. The league also forgoes the last 2-minute reports that have become a transparency standard in the NBA, so there's no public accountability for crucial endgame decisions.
Let's jump right in. I want to start with the play that set off all of the chaos. Everything else that we will talk about, there is one play that set off all of it, and it is this steal that Alyssa Thomas made on Napheesa Collier. So this was at the end of the game. Fee is dribbling down, and Alyssa Thomas goes across her body, steals the ball, and then takes the ball full court for a layup on the other end, and that pretty much sealed the deal for the Phoenix Mercury. They won last night's game, but I want to show you guys the close-up. This was not ruled a foul, and I am dumbfounded by the amount of people online, even the amount of professionals online who are saying that this is no foul. And the reason that they're saying that it is no foul is, as you can see here, Alyssa Thomas reaches across, and when she reaches across, you can pause the video here, she gets all ball first. Okay? So no. Was there any foul when she was tapping the ball away? No, it seems like there's no contact there. She strips the ball clean. But as you can see, the angle in which Alyssa Thomas is running across Fee's going this way, Alyssa Thomas is going this way. Fee is in full motion. You can even see, again, with this screenshot, the angle in which Fee's body is going. She is going full speed in one direction. She is running in one direction, and Alyssa Thomas cuts her off in that.
Furthermore, the economics underline the gap. WNBA referees are not full-time employees. They are paid per game, with veterans earning up to $2,500 per game. For context, NBA referees are salaried, earning between $150,000 and $550,000 a year. This pay structure means many WNBA officials have to supplement their income with college games, reinforcing the sense of a second-tier system. When a coach like Cheryl Reeve speaks out, she's not just complaining about a loss. She's highlighting a fundamental flaw in the league's infrastructure. It's a system straining under the weight of the league's own explosive growth, and everyone is paying the price. And Reeve was far from the only one sounding the alarm. The frustration over the officiating in the WNBA had been building all season long, with coaches pointing to a pattern of excessive physicality that borders on dangerous. After the Lynx Mercury incident, Las Vegas Aces coach Becky Hammon publicly echoed Reeve's concerns. She revealed that her assistants, many of whom come from the NBA, are shocked by the level of physical play allowed. Hammond stated, "Most of my assistants come from the NBA, and they're like, this would not fly in the NBA. This level of physicality would not fly in the NBA. There would be fights." She argued that the core of the issue is player safety, saying, "You put two hands on something like that, it should be an automatic foul. Freedom of movement? There's no freedom." This sentiment was part of a chorus of frustration. Indiana's coach Stephanie White also publicly supported Reeve, and both White and Hammond were fined $1,000 apiece for criticizing the officiating. The league stars have also spoken up. Napheesa Collier herself, at her exit interview, delivered a sensational prepared statement, saying that officiating has now reached levels of inconsistency that plague our sport and undermine the integrity in which it operates, and accused the league of negligence. This inconsistent whistle doesn't just frustrate coaches. It puts players' safety at risk, as the injury to Napheesa Collier so painfully demonstrated. The league's decision to then assign the same crew to another high-profile series wasn't just a bad look. It was a validation of every coach's worst fears, and a sign that their warnings were falling on deaf ears. Now, let's talk about why assigning the specific crew to the Fever Aces series created a perfect storm of controversy. The Indiana Fever, led by Caitlin Clark, have been the single biggest story in sports this year, shattering attendance and viewership records everywhere they go. They are the underdog team that has brought a massive new audience to the WNBA. Their semi-final matchup against the Las Vegas Aces, a modern dynasty with stars like Aya Wilson and Chelsea Gray, was poised to be the most-watched series of the playoffs. It was a narrative dream. The young, high-octane Fever against experienced, physical Aces. But the Aces' style of play is famously physical, and they thrive in an environment where the whistle is swallowed. The league has long positioned itself as grittier than the NBA, with a style that encourages officials to let them play even when contact edges into dangerous territory. Unlike in the NBA, there's a widespread sense that there is no star protection. Marquee players from Diana Taurasi to Caitlin Clark have often absorbed bruising contact without whistles. By assigning the Barnett crew, a group that had just demonstrated a high tolerance for physical contact in the Lynx game, the league inadvertently, or perhaps intentionally, created a scenario that heavily favored Las Vegas. It meant that Caitlin Clark, who has been hacked and shoved all season with relatively few foul calls, would once again have to battle through contact without much protection. The league was essentially handing its most popular and marketable star over to the same officials who had just failed to protect another one of its superstars. This move confirmed the fears of many fans and analysts that the league's tolerance for physicality had become ingrained in its DNA, and that the product on the court was being compromised at the exact moment of its greatest popularity. The fallout from this decision was instant and toxic. Instead of fans and analysts debating the incredible matchup between Aya Wilson and Collier Copper, or the strategic battle between coaches Becky Hammon and Nate Tibbetts, the entire conversation shifted to the referees. Social media exploded with accusations of the league being rigged to ensure a Las Vegas Finals appearance. The Aces are often seen as the league's golden franchise. They have the flashy market, the strong ownership, and the established stars, and many fans believe the league has a vested interest in seeing this dynasty succeed. On the other hand, the Fever, with Caitlin Clark, represented the new, massive, and sometimes controversial wave of popularity. The conspiracy theory suggests the league's old guard is resistant to this explosive, organic change, and would prefer a more controlled narrative centered on its established powers. This sentiment wasn't created in a vacuum. It was fueled by a glaring and, in the eyes of many, a confrontational piece of evidence. The official box score for Game 1 of the actual WNBA Finals listed the officiating crew and included two of the same names from that infamous Lynx Mercury crew, Randy Richardson and Jenna Reneau. For a fan base already primed for controversy, this wasn't just a minor detail. It was a smoking gun. The league had not only assigned the controversial crew to the Fever Aces semifinal, but now, two of its members were officiating the championship stage. This move was perceived as the league doubling down, a clear signal that the uproar from coaches, players, and fans had fallen on deaf ears. It directly undermined the league's own credibility at the moment it should have been showcasing its best product. The toxicity of this decision can be understood by looking at a parallel situation in the NBA. The 2025 NBA Finals between the small-market Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder, while delivering an extremely competitive series and showcasing new stars like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, saw a 23% drop in ratings and was on pace to be the lowest rated since 1988. This demonstrates a clear viewership pattern. Casual fans are often drawn to large markets and legacy superstars. In the WNBA's case, having a dynasty like the Las Vegas Aces in the finals provides a recognizable storyline for casual viewers. However, by allowing the referees to become the main storyline through a series of baffling personnel decisions, the league alienated the very core, diehard fans who drive engagement, creating a lose-lose situation where neither casual nor hardcore audiences were happy. The conversation became entirely about the officials, overshadowing what was a fantastic Game 1 on the court. The focus should have been on Dana Evans' historic performance off the bench, where she became the first player in finals history to record 5 three-pointers and 4 steals in a game. It should have been about Aya Wilson's clutch double-double or Alyssa Thomas's near triple-double. Instead, discussions were dominated by the same questions of integrity you raised in the semifinals. When Alyssa Thomas went to the free throw line with a chance to take the lead with 24 seconds left, the moment wasn't just about a player versus herself at the line. In the context of the officiating controversy, every fan watching wondered if the game's outcome was being influenced by a larger, unseen force. This is the true cost of the league's actions. While there's likely no smoking gun for a deliberate fix, the decision to persist with this officiating crew shows an incredible level of tone deafness. It demonstrates a league office that is either completely oblivious to the perceptions of its fan base or so arrogant that it simply doesn't care. The The league invested in a best-of-7 finals format for the first time ever to build drama and narrative, yet it simultaneously undermined that very narrative by creating a pervasive sense of distrust. When the referees become the main storyline, the sport itself loses. Fans stop believing in the competition, and once that trust is broken, it's incredibly difficult to win back. This controversy casts a shadow over what should have been an untainted celebration of the league's growth and the incredible athleticism on display, proving that the most damaging calls in sports are sometimes made not on the court, but in the league's front office. So where does this leave us? The WNBA is in the middle of its greatest period of growth ever, largely thanks to the excitement generated by players like Caitlin Clark, who have brought in millions of new fans and unprecedented media deals. Yet, with this one baffling decision, the league managed to alienate a huge portion of its new audience at the most critical moment. It betrayed the players on the Indiana Fever, who fought hard to make the playoffs and deserved a fair shot at a title decided by skill and heart. It betrayed the Minnesota Lynx, whose championship hopes were dashed in a cloud of controversy and a devastating injury. And most of all, it betrayed the fans, who just want to watch a fair game where the outcome is decided by the players on the court, not the officials on the sidelines. The reassignment of this officiating crew wasn't just a mistake. It was a self-inflicted wound that exposed a deep-seated crisis of transparency and competence at the highest levels of the league. The conversation should be about incredible athletes and historic performances, but instead, we're stuck talking about malpractice. This is the fundamental danger for the WNBA right now. A league that has fought for decades for recognition and respect cannot afford to squander its hard-won momentum on avoidable scandals. The incredible performances of stars like Aya Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Alyssa Thomas are being overshadowed. The record-breaking viewership in sold-out arenas, built on a wave of newfound popularity, could easily recede if the core product, the fairness of the game itself, is called into question. What's the solution? It starts with radical transparency. The league must adopt the accountability measures that fans in every other modern sports league have come to expect. This means implementing a public last 2-minute report for playoff games, making officiating crews full-time employees to ensure consistency, and creating a clear, public path for evaluating and, when necessary, demoting officials who consistently fail to meet the standard. The old way of operating behind closed doors is no longer sustainable. The fans are watching closer than ever, and they demand better. This is about more than just one game or one crew. It's about the soul of the sport on the rise. Will the WNBA choose to embrace true professionalism and transparency, securing its future as a major league? Or will it allow itself to be held back by the very incompetence that has plagued it for years? The ball is now in the league's court. The players have done their part by delivering breathtaking performances. The fans have done their part by showing up in record numbers. Now, it's time for the leadership to do theirs. If you want to see more deep dives into the stories that shape the sports world, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What change did you demand from the WNBA office? And don't forget to subscribe for the full story every time.